Hey everyone, this is Daniel from PhoneArena with a video review of the Samsung Galaxy S4 Zoom. Samsung's goal appears to be presence in each and every niche mobile segment, and it decided to beat the onslaught of camera phones to market with the Galaxy S4 Zoom. Despite the flagship branding, we'd have to admit that the Zoom seems to be first a shooter and then a phone. It expands on the idea started with the Samsung Galaxy camera, a 16 megapixel cam which has cellular connectivity too, but for data only. S4 Zoom jibes very similar in design with the same 16 megapixel resolution and Xenon flash, but tones the optical zoom down to 10 times instead of the 21 times on the Galaxy camera in order to keep the size relatively in check. On paper, we have the first phone with 10 times optical zoom, but did Samsung manage to make a true camera phone, or did it simply slap a phone on the back of a camera? Well, let's see. What's in the box first? This is the same recycled cardboard box that came with the Galaxy S4, for example. Samsung is getting very serious about recycling and sustainable development. We get a micro USB cable, a wall charger, a set of spare earplugs, and a pair of in-ear stereo headphones. This is the same pair that comes with the Galaxy S3, not the fancy ones that come with the S4. Again, very compact. Recycled cardboard box comes with the Galaxy S4 Zoom. Now for the phone itself, in short, we get a Galaxy S4 Mini here at the front and a compact point-and-shoot camera on the back, and that's the best way to describe what you can expect from the Galaxy S4 Zoom design concept. This so-called phone is rather bulky, as you can see, at 15.4 millimeters because of the grip bulge and the huge protruding lens with a zoom ring here. The thickness goes up to 25 millimeters, full 25 millimeters here. Talking on this thing or simply carrying it around is no different than trying to hold and talk with a compact consumer camera. Working the screen with that giant lens protrusion on the back is not very comfortable with one hand too. At least you've got a good grip while talking, resting your index finger against the zoom ring here. Speaking of one-handed operation, this grip bulge here on the right should be helping to use the phone as a camera, quickly framing the shot and taking it with just a few fingers gripping the phone. In reality, the bump is too small to securely grip the phone, and the on-screen shutter key is too close to the edge, so you have to grip with both hands. Granted, there's this two-stage shutter key here, but it is also very close to the edge of the phone and can be pressed comfortably with one hand without the risk of dropping the handset. That same physical shutter button enters the camera up directly when pressed, bypassing the lock and home screen, but only when you turn the display on like that. With the power lock key, there is no 1 second sleep to snap function, like on some Xperias, for example. Thankfully, these capacitive navigational keys below the display can be turned off when you're in the camera application, so you don't constantly have to worry hitting the back of context menu keys when you turn the camera app on. Galaxy S4 Zoom sports a removable battery right here under this protective lid here on the grip bulge. There's a sliding mechanism which pops out the battery. Here's the micro SIM slot, and on the left we have the micro SD card. The phone takes micro SD cards up to 64 gigabytes of size to store all those pictures. And there's a tripod mount as well, right here on the bottom. As far as the display goes, we have the 4.3 inches 540 by 960 pixels QHD Super AMOLED display on the phone that you can find on the Galaxy S4 Mini. So you can rest assured it has great viewing angles, deep blacks, and very saturated colors. You can also expect the disadvantages such as cold default colors and low brightness levels, which make framing a shot outside a pretty sad affair sometimes, especially in direct sunlight. The display settings let you change the image mode though. You've got standard, professional photo, movie, and dynamic. This professional photo mode is supposed to allegedly represent directly a standardized color gamut. Samsung has also graced the display with the super sensitive tech that allows you to operate it with gloves, so working the camera app on that ski trip won't be an issue. We've got the TouchWiz Nature UX painted over Android 4.2.2 on the S4 Zoom with a bit of photography apps thrown in like Photo Suggest or Video Editor. There's not much else new to the popular Samsung interface, so you can refer to the Galaxy S4 Mini review for more details. The only gripe we have is there is no dedicated landscape mode when you turn the phone. It just stays like that in portrait, and since you're going to be using it pretty often like a camera, a dedicated landscape mode would have been useful. A 1.5 GHz dual-core Exynos 4212 processor with Mali 400 graphics is what's powering the Galaxy S4 Zoom, aided by 1.5 GB of RAM, and the phone also hosts 8 GB of internal memory, plus a microSD slot for expansion. This chipset is nothing to write home about in terms of benchmarking prowess. As you can see, it just scored 5059 on Quadrant, but it does the job of running Jelly Bean apps and the camera interface sufficiently quick with barely a perceivable lag, as you can see. The TouchWiz browser is well known to be a pretty fast renderer, and it doesn't disappoint here too, letting you sideload Adobe Flash if needed. It is somewhat choppy at times if you compare it with the ones powered by the latest and greatest chip, but it does the job fine. The S4 Zoom has both LTE and HSPA Plus versions, with the HSPA Plus speeds hitting 21 megabits per second. If your carrier can supply that, of course. Other than these radios, we get Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 4.0, assisted GPS, and NFC, but there's no FM radio. The handset sports an infrared sensor at the top, so you can control your TV or home stereo with the dedicated app. The gallery sports the usual split view with the folders here on the left and the content tangible on the right. You also have editing mode, pretty rich, which is good considering that this is, after all, a camera phone. You can apply a bunch of effects. You can crop, resize, rotate, draw right here on the S4 Zoom. A pretty rich editing functionality embedded right in the gallery. The music player is the tried and true TouchWiz music player with a bunch of equalizer presets. There are a lot of sound modes as well. Pretty rich selection. Despite the bulky chassis, the loudspeaker is pretty average, nothing to write home about. And the phone comes bundled with the same pair of in-ear headsets that comes with the S3, not the ones that come with the S4, which are much better. Video playback is spotless. Basically, the phone plays everything you throw at it, including DivX, XVD, MKV files. Let's try it on an MKV video. It runs without a problem, and that's up to 1080p, as you can see. This goes for DivX, XVD, MPEG-4 files as well. You can detach the video window and place it anywhere on the screen while doing something else underneath, like usual with the Samsung phones lately. The Galaxy S4 Zoom has 16 megapixel camera with optical image stabilization and 10 times zoom. It's backside illuminated, should be taking great photos in low light. 4 shooting modes here in the camera app: automatic, smart, with a bunch of presets here, including macro mode, HDR, indoors, eraser. You've got action freeze, also best face, and this here smart mode suggest, which when you try to focus will come up with 3 suggested modes depending on the lighting circumstances. You also have some exotics like this here kids shot, which will make a funny sound to attract the toddler's attention before you take a picture of it, and much more, pretty useful. But you also have this expert mode, which allow you basically to control each and every aspect of the picture taking. This is for shutterbugs here. You've got shutter speed from 16 seconds down to 1/2000 of a second. You also have got 2 aperture settings, something we don't see very often on the phone. Actually, that's the only one: f3.1, f8.8. And also all the usual settings like brightness, ISO up to 3200. White balance settings, very rich compared to other handsets. Metering, you can adjust how many pictures will be taken in continuous shot mode. And also you can adjust each and every color option from NDR. Different hues, you have saturation, sharpness, contrast. Basically each and every setting can be given right here from this expert shooting mode, if you know what you're doing, of course. The photos themselves are on par with a very good point and shoot camera, and certainly much better than the ones from your smartphone. The automatic mode tends to oversaturate the colors a bit in comparison with our reference Panasonic camera, but the result is very eye-pleasing, not gaudy as some compact cameras make it. The S4 zoom captures plenty of detail, and the zoom function is a godsend if you want to close in without moving. Even at the maximum 10 times zoom, the quality is very good, with minimum fringe distortion actually, and high dynamic range scenes are measured correctly without over or under exposed areas. And the handset picks the white balance settings right each time. Noise is not an issue as well. We just wish the photos were a bit more distinct and sharp in automatic mode. Indoors, the phone performs very well, certainly better than all smartphone cameras so far, keeping noise to a minimum and details distinct, though the pics turn softish at medium luminance. There are no white balance issues indoors, and the xenon flash distributes the light very evenly without weird object shadows, and is good for about 10 feet distance. Video is recorded with 1080p with 30 frames per second with good amount of detail and saturated colors, and you can use the optical zoom while shooting. There's an option in the setting you have to check, so as the phone weeds out the zoom motor noise, for example. And the option called wind cut, which can diminish the piercing wind sound that often invades the mix outside. And the phone's microphone records very strong and clear sound while filming the footage as well. The minute you hold the Galaxy S4 zoom, it becomes clear that Samsung has done more of a compact camera with phone functions, rather than a true camera phone conceived from the ground up with mobility in mind. It is quite bulky because of the zoom lens and rather uncomfortable to operate with one hand, and that includes picture taking, because the shutter keys are too close to the edge here. So you risk dropping the phone each time you take a picture with one hand. The photos and videos are as good as you'd expect from a decent compact point and shoot, though they still see the results from the giant sensor inside the 808 PureView, for example, which can be considered somewhat of a competitor for shutterbugs, albeit with the HCMBN and much weaker zoom abilities. Looking around for a good camera phone, you can also consider the Lumia 925, which is slim with excellent display and top-notch optical image stabilization in its turn, but is more expensive and has no true zoom abilities. Moreover, apart from the ultimate convenience of having both a Xenon flash and the optical zoom, the phone is a pretty good Android mid-ranger as well. So when your next vacation comes and you gear up for a lot of pictures, you might want to take just that bulky handset with you instead of carrying two separate devices. And if you have to have a convergence phone camera device with optical zoom for whatever reason, well, nothing can beat this chubby phone here. And Samsung has priced it very well to boot, just slightly above the S4 Mini Blood Brother, throwing in this whole camera part for very cheap. To sum it up, the advantages of the phone are that it's very good value for money for a convergence device. It takes very good pictures and video, including in low light, and the 10 times optical zoom performs very well. Disadvantages are that it's pretty bulky and challenging for one-handed usage, and also the OLED screen brightness could be higher, since now it makes it hard to frame a shot outside in direct sunlight. This was a video review of the Samsung Galaxy S4 Zoom by PhoneArena. For more information about this and other handsets, you can visit us at phonearena.com. Thanks for watching.